Memory is subjective. Truth is interpreted. Art is dramatized and distilled impressions. Narrators are unreliable. Words and silence can both be violent. People are more nuanced than opinions. Rhetoric is a craft. Trauma is inherited. Stories are sacred. Solidarity forever. So everybody thinks I'm crazy again. The strike began on September 11th. I've missed 6 weeks of classes because I refused to cross a picket line manned by fellow educators facing off against budget cuts and privatization. I've never seen such a polite picket line before. Only in Canada would my fellow workers say sorry to the traffic they're obstructing. Only in Canada would the police be there to ticket cars that don't stop for the protesters. I bring a traditional offering, a flat of water bottles. The shift captain asks me why I've come. To pay my respects, I answer. I'm here to help you hold the line. Strikes are really hard to pull off, even for established and experienced unions. Workers have to be so desperate for fair compensation and safe conditions that we'll all risk our livelihoods at the same time for as long as it takes. Nobody does that shit for fun, I promise. Workers have families to feed. Maybe you haven't thought about this before because you haven't survived a society where your only value is your capacity to produce labor or data. You haven't been exploited until you broke, then been discarded. You haven't seen that happen to people you know and love. Not yet, anyway, and you have the picket line to thank for that liberty. Those folks out in the rain holding signs are fighting for you too. You break a strike the same way you break a siege. Wait it out. You pretend our demands are unreasonable. You dismiss our complaints as excuses. You downplay our demonstrations as an inconsiderate inconvenience to business as usual. You wear us down until we come crawling back. We bring our best selves to the picket line. We bring offerings of water, coffee, or snacks. We pick up an extra sign and walk with the striking workers for a little while. We ask them about their jobs and why they're out here, and then we listen without making it about ourselves. We'll hear threads of the same old stories woven through fellow workers' testimonies. We aren't respected. We aren't paid fairly. We aren't protected. Our boss is a dick who cut holiday bonuses and bought a fancy car. We never see our families because we're always working. We can't remember our last pain-free day or good night's sleep. Looming budget cuts threaten our hours and jobs. We need health insurance. Our spouse is pregnant. We need overtime pay. Our child wants to go to college. It's about expanding class consciousness. It's about knowing all workers are bound together by our oppressors so that when they turn us against each other, we tear each other apart. A picket line is about remembering that workers have all the power when we stand together. A picket line brands an employer as exploitative. If your workers are striking, you have failed to negotiate with them in good faith. It really is that simple. A picket line is a coordinated, targeted disruption meant to escalate a dispute without it coming to violence by reminding those with authority that they are vastly outnumbered. A picket line demonstrates that their bottom line depends on our labor. It's a threat, an ultimatum, and it works. As far as I'm concerned, a picket line is holy ground. A picket line obstructs thresholds to confront you. What are you for? The bare minimum display of respect for any picket line is this: do not cross. To walk a picket line, any picket line, is to channel the ideal it represents, the best of us working together as equals for the common good. What better way to describe the face of God? I'm ready to talk about the fear. I have coached children through school shooter lockdown drills. My windowless, fluorescent-lit classroom had only one solid wall. Cardboard cubicle dividers separated us from adjacent classrooms. There was no fourth wall, no door, just a bookshelf on wheels between us and the library. My policy handbook instructions to lock the door were useless, but I could still turn off the lights and tell the children to stay low and move to a far corner out of sight lines. We huddled together on the floor and waited quietly for flashlights to pass us by. The kids were unusually compliant, even about silencing and putting away their phones. Their wide eyes watched me for cues, and they asked for reassurance the way teenagers so often do, with questions. Why are we in this corner? There's no door. Because it's behind my desk. At least that's metal. What are these walls going to do to stop a bullet? See this panel here through the divider? It goes to the next classroom, and through that classroom is a door to an emergency exit. What if they're waiting for us there? Listen to me. I would never let anything happen to you, and I'm a superhero. Okay. When all the protests feel like vigils, we march in solidarity. Weary, shell-shocked, and disheartened, we march in solidarity. When standing on principle means shouldering the weight of the world, we march in solidarity. We march in solidarity with our bright-faced young zealots who still believe we can win. We march in solidarity with our cheerfully wizened elders who know how far we've come already. To march in solidarity with vision, with hope, with comrades, is how movements move.